Throughout the years, Konami's released a myriad of different skills for a variety of different characters. But the thing is, not every single one of those characters actually ended up getting a fully fledged deck from Konami. And that's really weird because a lot of these characters actually got enough support in order to make them a bona fide strategy. Characters that come to mind include the likes of Bandit Keith, Bonds, hell, even Chumley has enough to make him a deck. So that got me thinking, what would it look like if Konami actually ended up making all these characters a bona fide strategy in speed duels? And that's exactly what we're trying to explore in this series of mine. So essentially the gist of it all is that I'm going to be taking every single character that has a skill in speed duels but doesn't actually have a bona fide strategy actually built in a speed duel box and or a starter deck. And I'm going to try and build a strategy based around what skills they have available to them. But the catch is, the deck that I built for these characters can only include cards included in speed duels. Additionally, it has to make sense with the character in mind. That means that a character like Bandit Keith shouldn't be playing a card like Jinzo in his deck just because it wasn't a card that was like related to him in the anime, if that makes sense. And finally, the deck I built for these characters should also make sense with the skill in mind as well. But now that we have our restrictions set in place, I would like to ask you guys that if you do end up enjoying today's video, then I would really appreciate if you could leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It's the best way of supporting me and I greatly appreciate it. But enough rambling on my side, let's hop on to Dueling Book now. Alright guys, so who is ready for another deck profile? Alright, before we do get started on today's deck profile, as you can see we are doing the Dark Scorpion gang. I did want to go ahead and mention that for the next episode, I'm going to be planning on doing Albedos as the next character we cover in this series, just because Dark Scorpion and Albedos are the two characters currently available to us that have actually like fleshed out ideas already behind them. So I want to get them out of the way first before we start getting into the more obscure characters like Tristan, who else? Viper and Yubel, who you really have to like stretch out the definition of what it means to have a deck for these characters given the current card pool. I hope you guys understand. Alright then, so with that being said, Dark Scorpion gang, more specifically Don Zaloog. What's the deal with the deck we have going on right now? Before we go ahead and dive in why exactly I chose the cards that I did for the main deck, let's go ahead and talk about the skill first. Honestly, I'm a big fan of the Dark Scorpion deck. I think it's really fun, especially when you play it in a constructed version, but this one is still pretty okay. Alright, so the skill for this deck reads, once per duel during your main phase, if you control Don Zaloog, you can discard one card to special summon 2 Dark Scorpion monsters with different names from your hand and deck, one from each. Don Zaloog and Dark Scorpion monsters you control can attack directly, but when they do, using this skill, the battle damage inflicted to your opponent becomes 400. You can't summon or set any monsters except Don Zaloog and or Dark Scorpion monsters. Now, that last part of the skill made it kinda difficult to actually build Dark Scorpion a proper strategy. And you'll definitely understand what I mean when you take a look at the actual deck in itself. But with that being said, let's actually take a deep dive right now. Okay, so realistically speaking, if the Dark Scorpion gang were to have actually gotten a fleshed out deck by Konami, they probably would have given us a few more hand traps in speed duels in order to make this deck a lot more playable. But given what we have available right now, this is the best that I could personally do. Alright then, so starting off with the monster lineup, we of course have double Don Zaloog. It's kind of integral for the deck to have access to multiple copies of this card just because it's like the linchpin of the whole deck. Also, do keep in mind, the skill states that you can only summon these guys. You can't summon anything else. Like, you can't even attempt to summon anything else. So for that reason, we had to at least double up on Don Zaloog in itself, but realistically, I could have also seen Konami potentially have like doubled up on one of each of them. That could also have worked, but I think this take of mine is a bit more interesting. Continuing on, of course, we have Chick the Yellow, Cliff the Trap Remover, Gorg the Strong, and finally Meanie the Thorn. Of course, I don't feel like there's any explanation required. It's the Dark Scorpion gang, so let's move on. After that, we have DD Crow. This is a hand trap. It's some form of interaction with your opponent, and it can help you potentially mess them up during a duel. Also, as I said, because you are playing this skill right here, you can't summon any monsters, so you need cards that can do stuff while in the hand. So DD Crow, Maxi, and finally Golden Ladybug all kind of fit the vibe of the Dark Scorpion gang while still giving you some level of value in your hand. Specifically, Maxi is kind of cool in this deck as well, just because under the like chance that you're playing against a special summon heavy strategy, you can just slam this down and draw a few cards to get access to your Dark Scorpion gang a lot easier, and or a card that can get access to them. So I think that's kind of cool. Of course, in this monster lineup, you could also add in like one of the Karibos, but I don't know how well they fit with the aesthetic of the Dark Scorpions, you know, being like they're all like deviants and stuff like that. I don't know, but definitely something you could add in and it would help the deck a lot. Onto the spell cards now, we have Dark Eruption to recover the Dark Scorpion monsters, Hammer Shot to deal with big monsters you can't deal with, Rhoda to search out Don Zaloog, Shot of Greed to have Pot of Greed available to you, kinda, the Warrior Returning in Life to recover your Dark Scorpion monsters, and finally United We Stand, because you are able to spam out a full field turn 1. This actually works really well in this deck as well, so I'm like, that's kind of a cool addition. Now for the trap cards, we have Battle Guard Rage. They're all warrior monsters, they can all benefit from this. Covering Fire, because you are able to spam out a field of multiple monsters, this card is actually really good in this deck as well. Quaking Mirror Force, one of the coolest things about this deck is the fact that it's able to attack your opponent directly by effect, so being able to set an entire field of your opponent's monsters could just win you the duel right then and there. Trap Hole Spikes, because they are the Dark Scorpion gang, I can definitely see them having Trap Hole adjacent cards, so choose your favorite here. For the sake of variety, I put Trap Hole Spikes here, also because it helps the deck a lot. The monsters are really small, so any help with that is very much needed. And finally, Wall of Disruption, one of the best trap cards. There's a reason it's at 3. But yeah, in the comment section below, give me your thoughts. Do you like the take that I had? Would you have changed anything else? Genuinely, I'm all ears, because as I said, there's very few paths you could take with the monster lineup at least. As I mentioned, you could add in Sphere Karibo and or regular Karibo to this deck if you want to have a full set of 10 monsters, or you can go ahead and just be completely out on the hand traps and then just add 2 copies of each of the Dark Scorpion monsters you would like, just so you have a proper 10 monsters in the deck. Also, an interesting card you could potentially add into this deck is Allure Darkness, but because all the Dark Scorpion cards are so important to the deck, it kind of just feels like it doesn't fit the vibe either. But I don't know, it's a good card nevertheless. But again, give me your thoughts. This was a bit more challenging just because of the restrictions due to the skill, but you know what, I think I did pretty okay given what I had available to me. But again, share all your thoughts. If you did end up enjoying today's video, then I would really appreciate it if you could leave a like and subscribe to the channel. But with that guys, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.